Hi everyone, I'm Carol Smith, the social media coach. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover 4 questions that come up on a fairly regular basis. So I'm going to tell you what the 4 questions are first. Okay, I think we're probably going to be, I'm going to aim for maybe around about, looking at the clock here, about 12 minutes, if I can take that much of your time to cover these 4 questions. Okay, now the questions are, the first one is why should I bother using social media? I'm guessing a lot of you might come across that. You might believe in it, but you might come across it from others. So we're going to tackle that in a few minutes, okay? Question 2, when should I post? Comes up a lot. So we're going to look at that now as well. Question 3, for those of you who've been around a long time, anyone who's ever been on a training course with me, you're going to know the answer to this straight away, but it does come up fairly consistently, and it is, can I use Google images that I find on Google search? And then the last one is around online advertising, Facebook advertising. Specifically, we're going to look at today, how do I get started? So let's look at the first question I had here, and it is, why should I bother? Now, that came up very recently with somebody that I was doing a session with, social media manager, employed by a company. So they did, obviously they hired her because she was their marketing manager, I should say. So obviously covering marketing across the board, offline, online, and so on. But she did say to me, one of the questions that had come up from some of the principals within the companies is, why do we need to be bothering with social media? It generally comes up with people who don't really use it very much and perhaps don't understand it very well. And when I'm asked that question, one of the things I will always answer with is, because you know what? Your customers, sorry, your competitors even, are using social media. They're using online marketing tools. And what they're doing is they're targeting the consumer, the customer that you also want. And by virtue of the fact that they're actually using these methods to target them and you're not, what's going to happen is that you're going to lose out. So the quick answer to why should I bother using social media marketing is because A, it is a marketing tool. B, Marketing 101 will always say you go where the people are. And the people are on social media. So if you want to be effective in your marketing, you have got to include social media. Now, if we were doing this a little bit more in depth, what happens is, certainly when I'm working with a company, is one of the things that comes up is always, is where is your customer? And that leads on to, okay, we've gotten past the question of why should I bother? Now, what social sites do I use? It is kind of a slightly different question. I'm not going to stay with that one for the moment, other than to say that for some companies, the focus may well be on LinkedIn because they're B2B, with maybe a light touch on maybe one of the other sites. You could be a company that's targeting 5 or 6 social media sites. It could be you're on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, did I mention Facebook, Twitter, so on and so forth. So it is about, why should I be on there? Because people are on there. Marketing 101 tells me I should be on there. I want to target a wider audience than I'm going to get by doing the more traditional marketing. And also, if my competitors are on there, I need to be on there too. Okay, so I hope that answered that question. It's a bit of a kind of a, I would go into a hell of a lot more depth if we had more time on that one, but let's leave it at that. Second question comes up a lot, when should I post? So here's the thing, and I would say again to you, is you're supposed to know who your customer is. Now, I've done this again in sessions where I've sat with a marketing team and I've said, who is your customer? And it's a great way of getting people really thinking about this, because you often imagine that if you're selling a product or a service, whatever it might be, that you know who your customer is, but you'd probably be amazed at the amount of times that I sit with people and I say, okay, who's your customer? And I get random answers like, oh, it's everyone. You know, even Coca-Cola doesn't market to everyone. Okay. So, or you get, you know, people going, well, you know, well, they're whatever. And they give such a general sort of term. It's like, oh, really? So what I do with a lot of companies when I'm working with them is I say, okay, I want you to really map out who it is that you're targeting. The reason for doing that is that if you map out who this person is, you can then get an idea what their life is like. Now, what I mean by that is that if you were doing a mapping out, you might figure out that the person that you're trying to get in front of is probably sitting on public transport at 8 o'clock each morning. If you work that one out, okay, then I will be posting at 8 o'clock in the morning, because if you ever sit on a bus or a train or a dart, whatever it is, at any time, but think about in the morning when it's really full, what is everyone doing? 15 years ago, they were reading newspapers. Today, they're all in front of their phone. So if you think that your target audience is sitting on public transport at that time in the morning, then post at that time. Now, again, you might think, okay, well, we're targeting somebody that, you know, parents, you know, you're maybe pushing out a product that's for young children or something like that. If you look at TV ads, ever look at TV ads, and you kind of see the way they change. And it's again going back to, because they know they have an idea who's going to be looking at these particular programs at this particular time during these particular times of the day. You've got to do the same thing. Now, you're going to have somebody in your company, in your environment, that's either been a young parent at some time, or is maybe somebody that's a much younger target group, you know, sitting on the bus going in. Talk to them. What do you do? What do you read? What sites are you on? And when you do that process, go through all of that process, what happens is you get a much clearer idea about who your audience is, and then their lifestyle, and in turn then you can answer that question yourself as to what the ideal time is to post to actually your target audience. Now, as I always say with everything, is you play around with things. Try it, see how it works, test it, and then you go and you try and do something else, maybe a different time. So play around with these things, okay? So that was question 2. Question 3 is about images. Can I use images that I find on Google? No. Okay, I could just leave it at that. I've been talking about this for years, and people who are in the industry like me will also have been talking about it for years. The thing about it is, let me put it to you this way. Let's say you are someone who, you know, out with your camera, whether that's your phone or an actual camera or whatever, but you took a wonderful photograph, and you know yourself as a wonderful photograph. You're very proud of it. You stick it up on, say, your Facebook page, or you put it on a public setting, and, you know, all your friends love it, and they're sharing it, and their friends love it, and that's great. But what happens if, you know, after a while you start seeing that photo that you took has been copied, been used by brands to promote a particular product or whatever it is, and there's no credit to you, the photographer? How would you feel? Probably fairly ticked off. And what happens is now is when you go on to Google, if you look at Google, you'll see a lot of times it may be subject to copyright license. And it's for that reason, it's about accreditation. Now, one of the things I'm going to say to you is, and please don't make this mistake, you know, you will see generally Getty images. Please don't grab a Getty image and stick it on your website, or stick it on your any kind of paraphernalia that you're printing out, or on your social sites, because I've heard it numerous times now here in Ireland, in this little small country of ours, that companies are getting solicitors' letters, and in the solicitors' letters, what they're being asked to pay for is the period of time that they've used the image, whatever that was. And I had one company who told me they were, you know, they had it up there for, I think it was only a few days, but they managed, well, actually I think they had it for a little bit longer, but anyway, they had to go back and they went through a whole legal thing, and they ended up having to pay to use that image. Please don't leave yourself in that position. Now, if you go onto my Facebook page, which is the Social Media Coach, i.e. for Ireland, you will see I've put up time and again places where you can actually get images that you can have a commons license so you can use them, okay? The other thing to do is, if you've got anyone in your, if it's you or if somebody in your company that's good with a camera, particularly at your events, take your own photographs. You own them, and then use them. Okay, so that was question 3, conscious of time. Question 4 is about advertising, and I'm going to stay with Facebook advertising just for the moment, okay? And what I'm going to say to you is, if you've never tried Facebook advertising, I'm going to ask you to do something for me, and that is, I want you to try it, to test it, okay? There's a blog on my website, which is synneo.ie, synneo.ie. You'll find a blog on there that will walk you through the process of creating your first Facebook ad. Now, mind you, Facebook does tweak things consistently, which is brilliant, because I'll be honest with you, putting an ad up a couple of years back was a lot more difficult than it is now. Facebook's constantly tweaking it, making it easier and actually better. Okay, so what I want you to do is, I want you to go in and I want you to go into Adverts Manager. So I want you to put your credit card in there if you haven't done it already, and I want you to use Adverts Manager. And when you go in to create your first ad, you're going to see a whole load of different options from Facebook. One of them is, the easy one is boost to post, okay? The other one is, you can drive website clicks. So you can put something up and you can have clicks to your website and so on. You'll see them when you go in. Take the easy one. Go into a boost post, create a post or whatever if you want to do that, and try just creating an audience, okay? Now, again, going back to who's my ideal audience, how old are they? You can really drill down, by the way, in these ads. It's fantastic. You can go into relationships, newly married, newly engaged. Think about, what are you selling? You go into the demographics and you create an audience. By the way, save the audience. Give it a name that you'll remember for later on. Go in. Little tip for you. Be very, very careful when you go in and you put in how much you want to spend, but how long you want the ad to run for. Facebook defaults to 1 month. So unless you put in that you want to spend 10 euros and no more. And by the way, I would say to you, put in something really small and just see the results. Test things. Oh, get my tongue out of my mouth. Well, actually, I need my tongue in there, don't I? You know what I mean. But anyway, so here's my thing. What I want you to do is, I want you to go in and I want you to just create this new audience, and then decide on running an ad for 1 day, just 1 day, okay? And it has to be a minimum of 24 hours. When you go in, make sure that you put the start date in. Now, be very careful about this, because if you put the start date in for today, which is 7th September, what happens is, if you happen to forget, Facebook defaults to 1 month. So when you go into the calendar for the end date, it'll show you 8th October. Be really careful, because sometimes you kind of go, oh, September, I put it in 7th of September. It's showing the 8th. It'll be the 8th of October. Change it to the correct date. So 8th of September if you're going to do the 24-hour period. Put in your 1 day, put in a small budget, send it out there to the world, to your targeted audience, that is. And then have a look at the stats on it afterwards and see how it compares to putting a post out there with no ad budget behind it, and see what you think. Now, I do this a lot. I work with a number of different companies aside from the training. I do a lot of management of social sites. And I'm telling you, it is really now on Facebook anyway, if you want to get out in front of a new audience, if you want to target a specific audience, or if you just want to target a fairly general audience, what you can do so much using Facebook ads. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and do that. Now, if you feel you want a little bit of help with any of this stuff, I do online training via Skype. You can do an hour session. I've done 1 hour sessions concentrating on just Facebook ads. I do in-house, so I can go on site to wherever you are and do some training with you or a team, or we can do some consultancy around that. So whatever it is, if you've got a question about any of the stuff that I've been talking about and you'd like to know a little bit more, you can do one of two things. You can either call me, which is on Dublin number, which is 01 547-7884, or you could pop me an email, and if you go to my website, actually you'll get all the details there, and that's www.SynNeo, and that's like syn like synergies, SYN, S for sugar, YN, and then NEO.ie, so SYNNEO.ie. So hopefully you've gotten something out of this short session. Gosh, there's my tongue again, or my teeth, is it? Hopefully you've gotten something out of this, and please feel free to give me a call, send me an email, whatever it is, if you have a question in relation to anything that we've talked about today. I'll be back to you again. Thanks very much, and see you. Bye now.